Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Workers' Mic right here on WGN, powered by the Midwest Coalition of Labor. I'm Ed Maher from the International Union of Operating Engineers Local 150, and joining me today is Phil Davidson from the Mid-America Carpenters Union.
Good morning.
Good morning, Phil. How are you doing today?
Nice to see you, Ed. Very, very well. Happy Lollapalooza.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's the city's been a zoo the last couple of days, but it's good to see happy people.
Great people watching. A lot of fun.
Yeah, it's one of those things that kind of snags up traffic and whatever, but on a Sunday morning, it's not too bad.
No, and it's great for the economy. It's great. People have a lot of fun this time of year.
Yeah, it's like I always say, it's good to see happy people. So I don't grumble too much about the crowd.
No, what am I complaining about? Kids running around being idiots? Like,
yeah.
who hasn't gone through that period in their life, right?
Not me.
No.
Never happened to me.
Certainly not Ken.
Yeah, seriously. Well, you raise a good point. Ken's not here today. So where is Ken? Do you know where Ken is? I'm not sure where he is.
I don't know. That's the new game now. Where's Waldo? Where's Ken?
Where's Ken?
He's likely fishing, right? Is that his?
He could be fishing.
Okay.
He could be, I know he was at a rodeo fantasy camp earlier in the year. So he might have, he might be doing like round 2 of that. So we'll see. But if anybody is out and they see Ken, put a message on our Facebook page or something like that, because we're looking for him. And if Ken, if you're listening, we just we miss you. All right?
We miss you, man. I did not know that you'd taken up rodeoing.
It's a weird hobby for a guy like Ken, but he's a Renaissance man. As
a guy from Queens. Yeah. All right, got it.
Yeah. So what do you got going on? I mean, it's getting down to sort of the hottest days of summer right now. It feels like the summer is flying by.
Yeah, I know. Wow, school's about to start pretty soon.
Yeah.
That's always a fun time of year.
Summer picnics and stuff like that.
Summer picnics. We've got a meeting next week with the Carpenters, meeting with all of our delegates and reps. Always a good time. Do this a couple times a year.
Yeah.
Just go over kind of State of the Union, what's going on with work, what's going on with our benefit funds, just to keep people up to speed.
Yeah.
And I know you guys have one as well.
Yeah, we have a family picnic later on today. In a couple of hours after I leave here, I'm going to be heading straight there. It's down in Wilmington at our training center, and it's around 10,000 people usually show up for it. It's our big summer family picnic. It's a great tool for new members, for folks that we're looking at organizing. We kind of show them the size and scope. It's all free. It's free food. We have carnival rides, all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Another reason to join a union. Just
free picnic.
Just the community aspect of it. You get to hang out with like-minded people, have a good time. Everything's provided by the union. Families come, right? I'm sure there's activities for kids.
For sure. Yeah. And it's a great recruitment tool because there's heavy equipment. Our members, of course, operate heavy construction equipment. So there's heavy equipment everywhere. So dads can take their, or moms can take their kids out and have them sit in their lap and just show them what they do every day, run them through the different pieces of equipment. And it's a very, very cool thing. It's nice to see, younger people, they get that kind of spark in their eye, like, this is pretty cool. And who doesn't love playing around on heavy equipment? Everybody. Right.
Is it pretty much a fun event, or do you guys talk shop at all while you're there?
It's all about fun. We have bands and, free food and face painting and pony rides and all that kind of stuff.
Can I crash?
Sorry, pal, can't do it. I'd love to help you out, but it just gave away my last pass. So.
Okay, let's see if I can get a permit or something.
Maybe next year. Okay. Play your cards right. So, have you seen Oppenheimer?
I think I'm the only person who hasn't.
Oh my goodness!
It's on my list. All my movie watching is stuck on Disney right now because I have young kids. But
I remember those days.
Yes, yeah. I can tell you everything about Moana and Frozen 2 and everything else that's streaming on Disney. But
I already know everything about all those movies.
Those are kind of old. I can't even remember the new ones. But everyone says it's fantastic, and I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I went to see it when it first came out, and then the guys who filmed the show, they're going back, I think, for round 2 of it. But I've just been hearing so much about this movie, and people are still talking about it a few weeks after it's been out. It's a great movie, first off. If you haven't seen it, it's awesome. But one of the things that was sort of touched on in the movie that I didn't, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more about, and it's not a spoiler alert, is Robert Oppenheimer, J. Robert Oppenheimer, was a very, very active labor guy. When he first started teaching out at Berkeley, he started the first teachers union out there, and had the meetings at his house, and was just a really, really, really big union guy. And I read the book earlier this year, American Prometheus, that the movie was based on. And they didn't really touch on it too much in the movie. They mentioned it a couple times, but
Yeah.
it was one of my favorite parts of the book, being a union guy and just seeing, this brilliant, brilliant guy, and he was all about it and just fighting to get
Really?
everybody involved. And
there was no teachers union at Berkeley prior to him?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Wow.
Yeah, he set it up for the faculty, for the adjunct professors, and it wasn't the most popular thing with the university or with some of his colleagues, but
Yeah.
he was trying to lift people up, and that was the whole thing. So
That's
one
great.
more reason to like the man.
Who created the atomic bomb?
Yes, he was a complicated man.
Yes, he was.
That's you certainly leave the theater thinking that, but that was a really cool movie. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
But Robert Oppenheimer, not only a bomb inventor, but a labor man.
Yeah, a true unionist. And that's, I know from my wife's experience, who works in higher education as an organizer with her union, like those aren't the easiest people to rope in.
No.
Especially, high school teachers, everyone's usually on the same page. I mean, you'll have a few people who are, the Janus people, but there's a lot more engagement with them. But when you get into colleges and university professors, associate professors, it's hard to find a collective voice for all of them. And so, yeah, he is working out for him. That's impressive that he was doing that.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, I think that teachers' unions, it's very interesting, especially when you get into, university educators and stuff like that. People are experts in certain
Everything.
fields. And I think sometimes people who are experts at one thing can
Right.
maybe start to think that
There's
they're
probably a
experts in
labor
everything.
expert who's like, well, this is not how you actually run an organizing campaign. You're like, all right, dude.
I think I've met a few hundred of those.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the Oppenheimer crew, they were at premiere in London when the Screen Actor Guild strike first started, and they walked out
all
of the
walked
premiere
out,
together,
yeah.
which I thought was cool.
Even the director, right?
Yeah.
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 Chris Nolan.
Speaking of which,
And they're not, the directors do have a contract, right?
the Directors
Yeah.
Guild does have a contract. That was all three, the writers, the actors, and the directors, were all going to be expiring right around the same time. And I had hoped to see the directors kind of hold firm, but I read a lot about it, and it seems like the directors are sort of the ultimate company union, because, like Steven Spielberg, he's got a lot of power, but the directors who are not Steven Spielberg, who want to try to be Steven Spielberg, they tell the studio, like, sorry, I'm walking. Then the studio's not going to give them a job. They
Right.
probably
And a lot of them are producers
right.
/ directors. So,
Yeah.
they straddle both sides of the fence.
It's still pretty weak though, because I mean, every writer, every actor is up against the very same thing.
Yeah.
You tell a studio you're walking, and they may never hire you again. It's just a reality that you have to deal with. But
Right.
for whatever reason, directors are, they're not into it. So
Yeah. But the actors, from what I was reading, are really driving this, because the screenwriters are really never happy, because they are always getting screwed, especially
It's true.
by the system. I mean, especially in movies, some screenwriters aren't even invited to the set when they're
Right.
making a movie. They're like, get away.
Right. They put them in a little conference room for a
Exactly.
couple weeks, write the show, and then you're out.
And
of
yeah,
here.
and then there's rewrites. So you're really at the bottom of the ladder there. And traditionally, they've always, because they're so mistreated, they've been the ones that have fought real hard for new contracts.
Right.
And actors have usually gone along with the Producers Guild. And now that's changed with everything, with the actors joining the picket line and making everything difficult. So now it's really given some teeth to the writer's strike now that the actors along with them.
For sure. And the actors, I mean, I went to one of their events a couple of weeks ago down by Buckingham Fountain, and I can't remember the statistic off the top of my head, but they had given a number. You have to work a certain amount to qualify for health care from the Screen Actors Guild.
Yep.
And it's basically working, say, like 1,000 hours maybe. And that number might be off, but it's less than you would think. And only like a quarter of actors can qualify. So the vast majority of screen actors, you think of really wealthy people.
No.
They're not. They're
No.
just folks that are fighting for a day or two of work here or there.
And that's what they're essentially fighting for. They're fighting for working actors being able to make a living.
Right.
And that profession is in danger of being obsolete.
Well, right. One of the people that was out there, and they said that this is a huge piece of what they're fighting about, is you can, what the studios are trying to do right now is pay someone for half a day's work and then kind of capture their likeness and get like AI and use their likeness for in between scenes or for extras and stuff. And That's insane.
Yeah.
Give me 4 hours pay and then never talk to me again and use me like a digitized version of me. Not that anyone's really looking for a digitized version of Ed Maher. Maybe you are. If you are, give me a call.
You have your fans out there.
Yeah, there's a couple.
Yeah.
Hi, Mom.
And that one stalker.
Yeah, well, I try to, I'm not talking to her anymore.
Yes.
But to the point that we're making where these actors, not all of these actors are millionaires. The ones who are actually stepping up and putting their money where their mouth is. About a week ago, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, they didn't say how much money he gave, but SAG-AFTRA runs a foundation, aptly named the SAG-AFTRA Foundation. And it helps actors pay for rent, food, medical bills, all that kind of stuff. Just basic needs while they're on strike. So The Rock had given a 7-figure sum to this foundation. And then over the course of the past week, George Clooney and Meryl Streep both gave $1 million each. And they started working the phones to try to get other A-list actors to get on this boat of giving $1 million. So they had gotten like 12 or 13 other people. Leonardo DiCaprio, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Let me think. There were a handful of Matt Damon, I want to say, but there were a whole bunch of actors who've all just said we're giving, going to put in $1 million to help these folks kind of get by while we're on strike.
So it's basically going to be a strike fund for
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, Local 150, the operating engineers, we have a strike fund to help pay people a little something. It's not as much as you'd get while working for sure, but it helps get by. So
yeah, no, I love that idea. I'm glad they're seeing them doing that. George Clooney's a great guy to be friends with. I found out when he sold his tequila company, you see that he gave all of his buddies, like he brought 12 of his best friends over for dinner, and he gave each of them a suitcase with $1 million in it.
That's amazing. Well, he made $1 billion on that tequila deal.
He's got some money floating around, right? Yeah,
right. It's interesting because like Jimmy Buffett, you remember how you see sometimes that Jimmy Buffett Margaritaville margarita maker, like the blender? Yeah. Jimmy Buffett, he's made a lot of money touring. He made more money on that blender than he did on all of his concerts, all of his albums.
It's like the Foreman grill.
The Foreman, right? And I forget who was in line to get the Foreman.
Hulk Hogan.
That's right. And he turned it down. And George Foreman's just like, the George Foreman grill. It doesn't make any sense, but I love that thing.
I had like 10 of them in college for sure.
Yeah, we had like a 5-star kitchen, which was basically 4 Foremans just lined up, But I think at any given time, 2 of them were probably clean.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we've got a lot to talk about. There's some interesting things going on at the Carpenters that you're going to bring us up to speed on, and then a whole bunch of interesting things in the news, especially about the number of strikes that are going on across the country and some of the
Seems
success.
Like they're everywhere, man.
Everywhere.
Every time I click on New York Times, any sort of news website, it's just like new strike happening, and it's fantastic. All this stuff that you really hadn't heard a lot about over the last 5-10 years it's back in the forefront. It's exciting times.
Well, there's a lot of numbers that back up what you're saying. It's sort of unprecedented in modern times, but we'll get into that. We got to take a quick break, and we will be back with you with more Workers Mike right here on 720 WGN. Welcome back, everybody, to the Workers' Mic right here on WGN 720. It's Ed Maher. I'm here with Phil Davidson. And if you were with us for the initial segment, we're catching up a little bit on some of the things that are going on. The actors' strike. We didn't mention that they actually met on Friday, or that was the writers that met on Friday. First negotiations they've had in months. So hopefully this will kind of speed things along and bring all of this to a conclusion that works for all these men and women.
Jar something loose here.
Looking to make an honest buck. So I was reading something the other day. The BBC, British Broadcasting Company, has made it official. The Great Resignation is over. It was this period of time the last couple of years where more folks were resigning from their jobs, and there were just more opportunities during COVID to go make more money somewhere else. Employers were desperate for skilled people, so they were paying more, offering tuition reimbursement, bonuses, whatever. So everybody was kind of playing musical chairs with their jobs. Yeah, and it's over.
Holding out for the best deal.
Yeah. So now we're back to 2019 levels.
Is that on a global scale, or is that looking at?
So the numbers are based on stats from the USDOL, the United States Department of Labor. So it's American, and it's just a number based on resignation. So we're back to 2019. And so, workers or employers are probably a little bit less likely to be offering some of these perks. And again, that's why having representation, having a union to fight for you is so important, now more than ever.
Yeah. I can speak to that a little bit. At the Carpenters Union, we've got a new program in place where we are offering day one health insurance for residential carpenters, be they journeymen or apprentices. There's a couple different programs, but they all are working towards the same goal. And as you know, for most, if whether or not you're working in the private sector or public sector, typically when you get hired, there's a waiting period before you get your health insurance. And certainly in the non-union world, when there is, sometimes there is employer-provided health insurance. A lot of times there isn't, but it's not the Cadillac plans that our members receive. And you have to wait 3 months, sometimes 6 months, even longer.
Right.
So yeah, we've got a new incentive program where we set aside some resources to provide that. So basically, we're telling anyone that we meet when we go out on job sites for the non-union guys, saying like, look, come join us, and we will provide you healthcare the day tomorrow. Like, sign the contract, you're in, you get your health insurance. And that's such a big incentive to people.
For sure.
Especially if you've got a family, especially if you have young children on your plan. You can't pay those bills, you can't make those ends meet if you don't have a really good health insurance program. So that's been bearing some good fruit for us right now. We'll, it just started, so we'll see how that goes in the coming months, but something we're all pretty excited about.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, because anybody who's ever tried to organize in the labor world, you can find, let's say you work for a union where the members make, $40 an hour just on the check, not including benefits, $40 an hour. You can find somebody that does that kind of work who's working non-union for $15 an hour. You can show them the contract and say, I can put you to work tomorrow for $40 an hour. You'll more than double your pay. And people are just kind of like, no. Folks are a lot of times scared to take that leap, and it can be frustrating when you're just saying, like, look at the money. This can make a huge difference.
There's no comparison here,
in your
right?
family's
Exactly.
life, and keeping your family healthy, keeping food on the table. But it is a challenge sometimes to get folks to take that leap. But that's with any union. I always say that our members are our best organizers, because we have folks that we've organized who were against joining a union or who were skeptical about it, and who were quickly turned to become some of our biggest organizers, and are now retiring with pensions. And it's amazing.
And that's when you have to get to their significant others as well and say, like, this is what your husband and or wife is missing out on by not joining. And then they're like, what the hell are you doing? And they slap them side of the head. Go join the union now. So,
well, it's true. We've done that. We've sent mailers, and it's not always the most popular thing, but we've sent mailers to spouses in households too, because very often it's the spouses who are taking care of the medical bills.
Correct.
And mailing out the checks. Or I don't know if people use checks anymore. You use checks? I don't even have a checkbook.
We still do some checks sometimes.
Yeah.
I know at the union, some members prefer a check for different vacation funds. Maybe keep that quiet from their significant other.
What vacation funds?
Exactly.
Yeah, but
yes, no, not too much anymore.
So spouses are often the ones that are kind of handling things on the home front. Yep. And if they say, oh, you could be making almost triple what you're making now, and you haven't mentioned this to me, why?
You got
like
some explaining to do.
Yeah, sometimes the fellas don't appreciate that, but
right.
It takes a strong woman sometimes to help open the eyes. So,
amen.
Yeah. Well, we've got to take a quick break, but stay with us. We're going to get into some of these strike stats from 2023 when we come back. Right here, it's Ed Maher and Phil Davidson with the Workers' Mic here on 720 WGN.
Welcome back to the Workers' Mic on WGN. I'm Phil Davidson from the Mid-America Carpenters Union, here with Ed Maher from Local 150 Operating Engineers. And Ed, you were telling me that you've seen a lot of stats about this has been one of the hottest months for strikes in a long time.
Yeah, I think it was the New York Times, or maybe it was the Washington Post, said that July of 2023 was the busiest month for labor strikes in America in the last 30 years.
Really?
Yeah, so in addition to the actors and writers, you've got baristas, even lawyers. There's a labor and employment law firm they're trying to organize, and I think they're threatening to go on strike.
Really? Good for them.
So yeah, so far this year, through half of the year, 320,000 workers have gone on strike in America. And that doesn't even count UPS. UPS would have been, I think, another 340,000.
350, yeah, somewhere around there,
that would have been a real game changer.
People are mad as hell. They're not taking it anymore.
Well, yeah, UPS especially. I mean, they threatened to strike. They were ready.
Yeah.
They were having practice pickets and all that. And they got the biggest wage gains that they've had in decades. So clearly it works. And one story of success that I didn't even know about until a couple of days ago was with American Airlines, the pilots. So United, in mid-July, ratified an agreement for pilots that would give wage raises and benefit raises up to as high as 40% for pilots. And at the same time, the American Airlines pilots are negotiating. They see this going on with United. Their offers are nowhere near this.
Like, we want a piece of that pie. Yes.
Right. So they said, we're not even going to consider. We're not going to vote on any offer until we get at least what the United pilots got.
Yeah.
And, everyone, of course, immediately is like, well, that's not how this works. But a couple weeks later, fast forward, American Airlines pilots got it.
They got it.
So clearly it works.
Yeah.
Strikes work, and we say that all the time on this show. It's not something to undertake lightly, but especially pilots. I mean, who wants to nickel and dime a pilot? If you're out there and you're saying that's too much money, I don't know. Give me the highly paid pilot. You can fly with the pilot who's making $14 an hour.
Yeah, and Spirit or whatever. Oh, can we say that?
There's nothing wrong with Spirit, Phil.
They're a great airline too.
If you pay $10, you get the big seat, and that's what they call it, the big seat.
That's true.
First class, business class. No, the big seat.
The big seat.
Yeah.
I wonder if their pilots are unionized.
I don't know. Probably not. But who knows? I mean. Spirit, though, have you ever flown on Spirit or tried to price out a fare?
You know what? I should take that back. I've actually never flown on Spirit, so I haven't. I'm stereotyping here.
I flew on it once, and I didn't have to take a bag with me, so it was easy. And I paid extra for the big seat. But
$10.
Yeah, when you pay, when you do that, you have to pay to pick a seat. You have to pay to print a boarding pass. I mean, every step in the process, you're paying like an extra $5 or $10, and when you get to the end of it, it costs about the same as what you were going to spend on.
Normally spend on another.
It was like
airline.
microtransactions. Yeah, you had to spend it individually on each little thing. So I usually just kind of avoid it. I mean, I don't know. It's just a little bit of a hassle, but
that's hilarious.
But anyway, Spirit pilots, if you're out there listening, you guys should unionize if you haven't already. There's money to be made.
I mean, I think this year was some. We're back certainly back to the pre-pandemic levels, but more people in the last couple years have flown and over any time in since the invention of the airplane. I mean, people had a lot of extra money, and everyone's looking to get out, especially being holed up in their house for the last couple of years.
For sure. I think people got a whole new appreciation for leaving the house and going and seeing places.
So
when there was not an option, everyone said, when I can travel, I'm going to travel. And a lot of it really was fueled, interestingly enough, by young people, just people who are fresh out of college, because during the pandemic, student loan payments were frozen. So you're talking about millions of people who all of a sudden have,
disposable income.
A $500 to $1,000 monthly bill that they don't have to pay.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of 20-somethings that were traveling the world, and it's like, how are you doing this? And then come to find out, it was because the student loans were frozen. So
the point being that the airlines are flush. And they can pay these pilots.
Absolutely. And when you see things like, I know Southwest has had a lot of problems lately. United had some issues too. But when there are big storms and it interferes with, connecting flights and all that, you'll wind up with a whole city full of stuck travelers for a weekend. And people will get their flights rescheduled for, a week from tomorrow. And having enough pilots.
Been through that recently. Painful.
It's the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've slept in a couple of airports, and I don't have a favorite. They were all terrible.
Yeah.
But when it comes to pilots, you want to have enough, and you want to know that the ones that you have are good. So take care of them. Make sure they're happy. You don't want a pilot who's showing up to work in the morning. He's been out late working all night just to make ends meet. Doesn't go well. No, I want that guy bright-eyed and bushy-tailed for sure. That's exactly right. But let me think. There was it the Art Institute? Yeah, the Art Institute. That was big news. They just announced. It just happened. Right. They just announced that they came to agreements. The employees there, which I believe the union covers curators, librarians, the gamut over there. Yeah, even the gift shop. Even the gift shop, right? And they're affiliate of AFSCME, and they just came to agreement. So that's huge. It's been a year plus in the making. For sure. That they've been negotiating. So nice to see a win from our friends at the local level here in Chicago. Yeah, I think it was 14 months.
Are they the first museum to?
You know what? I don't know. I know Field Museum is currently in the process. I think the Museum of Science and Industry is in the process, and they have all formed these groups of, the Workers United groups. But it is great to see that it's working. They were out for 14 months, so they were in the process for 14 months, and at times there wasn't a lot of progress. And as an employee, you start this process out, and it's like, we're going to see results. We're going to get this quick. 14 months, I mean, halfway through that, you're starting to wonder if this is going to work, and employers are starting to mess with you. So, kudos, a lot of credit to all those employees who stuck it out. And, I haven't seen the terms of that contract because they're just scheduling ratification meetings right now. They have a tentative agreement with the museum, and they're just going to put it out to their members for a vote. But I hope they got a good deal. Yeah,
no, that's a feel good story. See that finally come to be.
Yeah, I've started to hear the UAW is talking about potential strikes as soon as September, because the UAW, all the auto manufacturer workers have started having like tiered workforces where anybody who started after such and such a date makes half as much money, and it's a problem because you just start laying off all the older employees. And you just all of a sudden turn your workforce into like a young, underpaid workforce. Yeah. So they're wise to it, and they're trying to fight back. And I don't know exactly where they're at in the process, but I want to say their contract ends sometime in September, because this is something that's kind of coming down the pike and starting to attract a lot of attention.
Really?
UAW, that would be a big one. But I've got to think that the amount of demand for new cars, there's still American manufacturers that are charging above MSRP. If you've tried to buy a car recently, it's not fun. No, there's no haggling.
It's come down a little bit. I think last year was just the wild, wild west.
Right.
It was a great time to sell a car.
Yeah,
but it's still above market value. And I think the other issue that UAW has is with the electric cars, and not nearly as many components, and taking work away from them, and obviously everything that comes overseas that's imported, all the different batteries and that you need to operate electric cars is cutting into their work, and obviously there's some unhappiness about that. So we got to make sure that they're taken care of, especially in a evolving world where the technology is changing and more people are driving electric cars. And
well, some of these federal infrastructure and green energy bills are offering some enormous incentives to build this technology in America, and so we're starting to see more and more of that. And over in New Carlisle, Indiana, which is right outside of South Bend, they're going to build a factory. It's a partnership of General Motors and LG Electronics. It's a company called Ultium.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't hear about this one.
So this factory
is... Because LG's Japan?
German, I think.
Oh, they are?
I think so.
I thought they were Asian. Okay.
I might be wrong.
Okay.
It happens very, very often, but I think it's German. Anyhow.
They make TVs, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So LG and GM have partnered on battery technology, and it's for all these GM cars. This factory is going to be over by South Bend. They're going to start construction before the end of this year, and it's going to be a $3.5 billion project.
Wow.
And it's going to receive subsidies and incentives from some of this federal legislation, and that ensures that all the construction work that's done on it is done at prevailing wage levels, which isn't something you see a ton of these big, funding bills. So kudos to the administration in Washington for looking out for workers, no matter what party you're in. That is a good thing.
Yeah.
Making sure that people who are working on these big taxpayer-funded projects are making a good living. That is a good thing. But the employees who work at other facilities for this company, Ultium, are complaining because they are generally paid around $16 to $17 an hour making batteries. It's a pretty hazardous job. And
Absolutely.
They're going into GM cars, and so they're basically making about half of what GM, UAW members are making, and so they're upset because the companies are not willing to sort of like lump them in with the other manufacturing workers. So it's this whole emerging industry where they are being paid about half as much. So it's like, hey, Washington, if you're going to look out for the workers who are building this building, look out for the workers who are going to be inside of it.
Yeah.
Working with, I don't know what's in batteries, lithium ions. I mean, who knows? It sounds like a pretty hazardous job.
We'll say lithium, sure. Yeah,
Why not?
I'll pretend like I know what I'm talking about. Yeah,
We're
definitely
nodding our
lithium
heads.
ions.
You
Yeah.
can't see it on the radio, but we were both nodding our heads.
Are they being organized, these workers?
I think so.
Yeah, machinists maybe?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I've got to look into it. I'll follow up on that next week.
You're right. I mean, that's minimum wage for a component that is going to be worth trillions of dollars. I mean,
Right.
everything is going to be on lithium batteries in the next 20, 30 years with electric cars. Absolutely. So.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of European manufacturers have stopped research and development on combustion engines. They're just moving to all electric cars. I mean, companies like Audi are not going to make gas-powered engines anymore. So
I did see that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
There's an all-electric Ford Bronco now, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and Mustang, I believe. There's an electric Mustang.
The Mach-E.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it looks kind of funny, but it gets really good reviews.
I know Ford is they're all in on electric vehicles.
Yeah, the Lightning, the pickup truck.
Oh,
I
yeah,
was
the
skeptical
Lightning,
about that, but
right.
that thing is a beast.
Is it?
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. I've a guy that one of our contractors drives one, and it's beautiful. So I mean, this is the way of the future.
Exactly.
And these workers should be compensated with the value that they're adding. You're not going to be able to build a car anymore without a battery. So the people building the batteries should make a couple bucks. I mean, we're insourcing. We're bringing these jobs back to American shores, and we should pay people, what American workers should be paid.
Yeah, give people a blue collar wage that allows them to join the middle class. I mean, it's pretty simple.
Still the American dream, folks.
Yep.
So
bring it back.
All right. Well, we've got to take a quick break. We'll be back with you right after this on WGN 720, The Workers' Mic. Welcome back, everybody, to the Workers' Mic right here on 720 WGN. That's 720 WGN. I'm Ed Maher, and I'm here with Phil Davidson, and we've been talking a lot about a lot of different things today, Phil. It's been a pretty action-packed show.
We've covered a lot of bases here.
Yeah, and I think we've got a few minutes left for the last segment of the show, and I kind of wanted to touch on a few interesting things that are happening in the legislative world, the political world. I mean, not everybody loves to hear about politics, but sometimes there are things that are just too important to overlook.
Yeah,
and
this is what impacts you at home.
so one of the
Hit your
things
pocketbook.
that we talk about all the time on this show is, and you don't hear a lot about it elsewhere, you're starting to a little bit more, but is this new push to broaden child labor, to bring children back to the workforce. And the latest development in this tragic saga is the state of Arkansas, which the governor is Sarah Sanders. You may remember her as Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the former press secretary for Donald Trump.
How could you forget her?
You really, you can't forget Sarah Sanders.
No.
Once you just can't forget. But
Huck.
yeah, she signed a law in the state of Arkansas called the Youth Hiring Act of 2023. That's what it's called. The Youth Hiring Act of 2023, as though it's a good thing. But what it does essentially is it removes any sort of work permit requirement for workers who are younger than 16 in the state of Arkansas. There's no more parental approval required. There's no more proof of age required to get a job through the state. They used to have a permitting process. We have the same in Illinois. But they're doing away with it.
I mean, that just sounds like something from a third world country. Like, what is
we're removing barriers to
Yeah.
let our kids go back to work. If your problem was you couldn't get your parents to allow you to go to work, we're just cutting your parents out of it. Government must know better than parents, right?
And we know how greedy companies are. I mean, that's not a stereotype. They just are. I mean, everyone's beholden to their shareholders, to their bottom lines, whatever it is. So they're going to exploit these kids.
Right.
These kids are absolutely going to go work slave hours for no money. I mean,
all the adults,
scary.
as we were saying in the last segment, all the adults must be willing to go on strike. So they're looking for kids to come to work. Don't tell your parents, kids. Just come on down to the factory.
Is it like 40-hour work week? Like just
yeah, I think there aren't really restrictions on it.
Did they change anything about the wages? Because I know in other, like here, like you can pay someone under the 18 less than a minimum wage, I believe, right?
I'm not sure. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know if
That's
they
what I
did
tell my
anything with
babysitter.
minimum wage. Underpaying your babysitter.
No, we pay her top dollar.
This is a scandal. You heard it here first.
We pay her top
everybody.
dollar.
But I know in other states, I think it's Iowa, if you go to work in a factory under age 16, it's as part of a government program. And to be a part of that, you have to sign away all rights to go after a company if you're hurt or killed.
Oh my God.
So it's like a special permit program that lets these kids go to work in factories, manufacturing, meat processing. And if they get hurt, their families can't even go after the companies for damages. So Arkansas, man, it's been a long morning. Arkansas, put them on the list.
That's actually probably a pretty good nickname for them.
Arkansas.
Yeah, we'll figure something out.
It sounds pretty authentic.
Yeah, yeah.
Like if Arkansas was going to change its name.
Arkansas Progress.
Yeah. Well, we're working on it, folks. But
that's a work in progress.
Yeah, we're off to a really strong start here. But Arkansas, I don't know. If you care about your kids, don't move there.
Then do yourself a favor and look up the picture of the bill signing and the look on those kids' faces. They look like they have just seen a ghost.
For sure.
Because they're supposed to be there as the token children to give Sarah Huckabee Sanders a high five for allowing them to work under the age of 18.
They look terrified.
They look so scared to be there.
These kids don't want to go to work. You compare it with the old pictures when they would sign laws that got kids out of factories.
Right.
And the kids are there.
They're going back in.
And they're smiling and they're happy. And now we're signing laws to send them back in, and the kids are just like, well, what? I want to go to school.
In the right to work state. Go figure.
I'm never going to learn my multiplication tables if I have to go to work. So, but
they'll all go work at Walmart.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these states, our boy Ron DeSantis is doing, he's trying to put work requirements on disabled people who are on Medicaid. It's one of these, if you're going to get federal funding or federal aid, you have to go to work, and it doesn't matter if you have physical limitations. So basically,
they need to be knocked down a peg. Those people who have disabilities, they're just living high in the hog. Yeah.
DeSantis is basically saying even those who can't work must work. And that's why he is the distant second, candidate. But all this stuff that he does to try to pick up points that hasn't worked so far,
not working. Yeah,
it still stays on the books. So it's just collateral damage, and I hate to see it. So
now he's just being mean for no reason. It's not winning him any favors.
I think we can officially call him an enemy of the show. Enemy of the show, Ron DeSantis. If you're listening, we don't like you.
We challenge you.
Yeah. So, and then finally, I guess one other thing I wanted to touch on, we're running low on time, but the Carpenters, you guys have been pushing. You got a wage theft bill passed in Illinois. You've been making some progress on that, strengthening.
Yeah, the governor just signed another bill that we sponsored, which requires all contractors and subcontractors to post the Illinois Wage Payment and Collection Act at all job sites.
Okay.
And that legislation just kind of sets mandates for when workers should be paid. Biweekly, there's a few exceptions for monthly work, and it also limits and requires consent from workers on when there will be deductions taken out of their paychecks. Okay. Because we've run into situations before when we do certified payroll on prevailing wage work, where we'll look at the payroll for a company, and it looks above board because you look at what they're paying in wages and benefits, and you're like, okay, that seems like they're paying what is the prevailing wage, which is AKA kind of like the union rate in a particular area. And then we found in one contract that we were going after, they had another column that said other. Mm-hmm. And basically in the other column, they were taking out like half the employee's earnings. Right. We did some digging, and it turns out that they were saying, oh, that was for use of company equipment, use of company automobiles. Wow. And basically just robbing these people, and that money was going right back into the contractor's pocket. Yeah. So this law basically prevents any of that from happening. So we're pretty happy about it.
No, that's great. I mean, it's really smart because you can put together a law that stops folks from having their wages stolen by their employer. But this is great because at least there you are told what your wage is supposed to be, what they can take, how often they can take it. So at least you know what you're supposed to be getting, because if you don't know for sure what you're supposed to be getting paid or when it's supposed to be taken out of your check or what deductions there are, you're just, you can't really say anybody's stealing from you if you don't know for sure. So
exactly. So it's kind of like a Surgeon General's warning at job sites. Here's how you're not getting ripped off.
Well, that's great. I mean, it's good to see this is continued to be strengthened by the Carpenters. So hats off to you guys.
Thank you.
And with that, I think we are just about out of time for this week. So Finally, one more time, if you've seen Ken, tell him to call us. We miss him dearly.
Miss you, buddy.
Yeah. But thank you so much again for coming in today, Phil.
My pleasure.
And thank you to all the listeners for sticking with us. Hope you enjoy a beautiful Sunday here. And it's been a pleasure. We'll talk to you next week right here on 720 WGN.